And we are live. Hello, everybody out there on the internet. Welcome to this live stream. My name is Tony Nagatani, and you are on the Sine Cosine Tangent YouTube live stream, Facebook live stream, or maybe even you're watching along on Periscope. I don't know. It's awesome that you are here. Today, we're going to be talking a lot of NFL football, which is a little bit of a change up from yesterday. And with me, to my right, I have my friend, Mike Jaglin. Mike is a very good friend of mine. He is a producer, an epic podcast content creator, and actually is kind of a legitimate sports podcaster in his own right, far more legitimate than I am. So, Mike, tell the audience a little bit about yourself, sir.
Well, I've been a television producer for years, but yes, I created a podcast based around the LA Clippers that ended up being the team podcast for 3 years, and since then I've produced numerous comedy podcasts for various comedians, and currently producing Back to School with Mazda Brani.
Excellent.
Which we have Brian Class on this week, which is a shameless plug, which went live today, so you can get that on Apple. Check it out. And then Between Two Worlds with Maz and Bassem Youssef, we will be launching probably in May, or going out with that in May. So, a lot of fun stuff. But as you know, I am a diehard sports fan at heart.
Yes.
And that's what I'm here to talk about.
Yeah, excellent, sir. So a little bit about your background. So I know you are an epic Philadelphia Eagles fan. We're going to be talking about some NFL football today. You're from the Philadelphia area, yet I know you kind of come from a diverse NFL background with your family, right?
Yes, I mean, my dad's a giant Packer fan, and his side of the family are Bear fans because they're in Chicago, and I am an Eagle fan. I adopted the Eagles because I went to high school in Philadelphia, and have kind of that Philadelphia mentality of everything's going to go wrong at one point. And then eventually 2017 came along. And even though Carson Wentz tore his ACL at a game I was at, and I was crying in a Fat Burger parking lot, Nick Foles saved the day and became the man, as we always call him, Big Dick Nick from these. Yeah. And it's ironic, too.
BDN!
It's a BDN will always live in our hearts. But you go back to the link now, and there's a statue of Peterson and Foles from the Philly special, and none of them are on the team anymore.
It's insane.
But that's
sports.
That's sport, right? I mean, you never know. It's a business. You never know what's going to happen. You never know when you're going to get Nick Foles in a bottle, and that's what makes us fans, right?
Yeah.
Kind of the unknown. I mean, and especially football too. Like you're a Niner fan.
Oh yeah.
You lived through some great years with Kaepernick and Harbaugh, and then you had the downhill spiral. Then you come back and you have some down years again, and then boom, you're in the Super Bowl. I mean, it just shows you the parity in the NFL.
Yeah, no. There are a lot of reasons why the NFL is, I think, the most dominant sport, at least in the minds of American pop culture. A little bit has to do with the violence, but just the fact that out of all the sports in the United States of America, the NFL has parity. So a team can go from worst to first, or from first to worst in any given season for a number of reasons: injuries or really poor management of the team. Heck, a coach could lose the locker room in the middle of the season and they stop playing. There's all sorts of dynamics at play that don't really exist in as heightened of a format as in other sports. And so I am a football first, a 49ers first fanatic, but really and truly NFL football is in my opinion, I think American football is the greatest game ever invented. From a tactical point of view, from a use of athletics point of view, and by that I mean it takes a lot of different kinds of athletes working together to accomplish the mission of winning a football game, and just also understanding the fact that football itself was invented as a war game. I find it, it's like human chess to me. It's a fascinating thing to watch, and I love it. And Mike, to piggyback on what you were saying before, we both used to live in Los Angeles, although you're close to LA.
I'm kind of adjacent. I'm in Thousand Oaks now.
Yeah.
But yeah, we both moved out of the city.
Yeah, I was also at that epic Eagles Rams game. It was epic because as a 49er fan, of course, I'm not a big fan of the Rams to begin with, and I was visiting the game with my ex at the time, who is an enormous Eagles fan, just like you are, and we had amazing seats. But I'll never forget watching Carson Wentz blow out his knee, stay in the game, pushing through for that touchdown, and then, seal the deal. And basically, didn't you earn the playoffs with that win? I believe.
Yeah. So, we got a bye. I think we got a bye with that win.
Yeah.
And then we had to win the next week against the Raiders, which we ended up doing to get the number 1 seed over the Vikings. Yeah, but I mean, from an emotional standpoint, I mean, that like it's almost like a roller coaster, because you have Wentz go down, you have Foles come in. Foles looks bad in this Raiders game. He looks average against the the Falcons, and then he comes out and he goes crazy against Minnesota, and then he's a gunslinger against Tom Brady. I mean, from this day on, Tom Brady won't shake his hand. But it's for you too. I mean, like you had such an emotional Super Bowl not too long ago. You guys are up 10 points in the fourth quarter. You guys limit the big play.
Yeah, very, very, very emotional Super Bowl, and I'm still a hill that I will always die on is the fact that the refs were not calling holding penalties in that Super Bowl game. I know that hats off to the Kansas City Chiefs who beat the 49ers in that Super Bowl, but I am still rubbed raw from the fact that if you go back and watch that epic 3rd and 17 conversion, that Patrick Mahomes to Tyreek Hill completion, you can very clearly see that there was some holding going on that offensive line, and I'll just leave it on. I'll just leave it at that. Yes, it's complaining, but damn,
I was. My wife is a diehard 49er fan, which I should have, piggybacked, and her entire family are 49er fans. I did feel good for bad dad Andy Reid because I sweated out so many years. He was always the pretty girl that always let us down. As a Philadelphia Eagle fan, and then he goes to Kansas City and he becomes this genius and gets Mahomes. It's just the way it happens, right? I mean,
you heard it here, folks. Andy Reid is a pretty girl. That is something that I will always remember.
Pretty girl that loves barbecue. He loves his barbecue. Just get pretty girl, bad dad. That's what I call him.
It's pretty funny to me. I really enjoyed watching the Super Bowl this past year and seeing Tom Brady sort of dismantle that. Really, from an offensive point of view, I was completely enamored with the job that the Buccaneers really did playing keep away from Mahomes and just running the ball as effectively as they did. A lot of people thought the last Super Bowl was really, really boring, but as a 49er who had to cry into my many, many shots of Jameson after the game, I felt it was just desserts, and really to watch the Buccaneers wipe the floor with Kansas City in the way that they did. And by the way, Patrick Mahomes, he's physically speaking probably the best quarterback we've ever seen with that arm. And I don't mean to poo-poo him, because he is an excellent competitor. I mean, the man has won a Super Bowl and he's so darn young. But it was really something to watch the old man in Tom Brady beat the young man in Patrick Mahomes. So that was pretty epic.
And talking about, getting back to what you talked about earlier about like the NFL being one of those parody sports, I think it's like the NFL, baseball, and the NHL. The thing about the playoffs with those sports is if you're hot getting in, your seeding doesn't matter. You're going to find a number 8 seed in the NBA. I think it's only happened twice that an 8 seed's gone to the finals, or excuse me, I think once an 8 seed's gone to the finals.
In the NBA.
But in the NBA. But they were a 5 seed.
Yeah.
And they played every game on the road. And I think we've seen over the last 15 years, the Packers were a 6 seed. The Steelers were a 6 seed. So, it's all about momentum and clicking at the right time. And then again, matchups.
Yeah. Well, it's going to be interesting too this year or this past year, we added the 7th playoff team into the NFL format, which I think is just fantastic for a competition's sake, and the the competition in the NFL can definitely sustain it. And then coming up this year, they just yesterday made it formal, but the 17th game is going to be happening this coming season. So it changes the math. But at the same time, it's going to add another week of revenue to make salary caps go up and have one more game full of playoff implications as the season goes on. And while I don't know what's going to happen in terms of the bye, do you know, are they going to do a second bye?
I do know they're cutting back the preseason game.
Okay.
So which is a giant complaint if you're a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
Because you're stuck with 2 preseason games at full price. And you can't, you know what I mean? And you're gonna go watch them play for a quarter.
Okay, so here's my thing. First of all, I own a CJ Beathard jersey. So number 3, I'm a big fan of preseason games because it gives you a chance to actually, see who the backups are going to be and watch those roster competitions. And I mean, I'm a rabid 49er fanatic, and so I really enjoy the preseason. And
I would just worry about risk of injury too.
True.
I mean, that's one of my things is like you don't want one of your best players. You want to get through camp healthy, and that's the thing. You never want that mentality.
Yeah.
To get through camp healthy.
Yeah. Goodness, I have been to a number of NFL games, and I really, really enjoy going to them. And I've gone to 49ers games. I saw Jim Harbaugh's and Frank Gore's final game with the 49ers, and then the following year I went to Levi Stadium and I went to go see the Niners get decimated by the Patriots and Tom Brady. And so I will say I enjoyed watching those games because, again, I just love football. But let's get into some of our topics right now. Yeah. So it's an exciting time of the year because it's less than a month to go until the NFL draft. And so there's a lot of mock drafts going on. Heck, there's 2 or 3 websites out there that allow fans to go on there and do their own mock drafts. And so,
what can't fans do now? I mean, seriously.
Actually make decisions.
They're going to run the country probably very shortly.
Yeah.
But no, it's insane the amount of mock drafts out there and the amount of real pundits. If we sat down, with 10 mock drafts, the odds of outside of Trevor Lawrence,
right?
It's a crapshoot on who these people think are going to go there.
Well, so this is exactly, I think, the point that we wanted to talk about here. We right now, we are citizen journalists right now talking about the NFL. Giving meta commentary about the entire mock draft process, but no one knows really a damn thing other than the actual teams who are drafting, and it's really a bunch of wishes. And so, I'd be curious to see, in the aggregate, with all this, Pro Football Focus mock draft data, if you were to compare the results of, the actual draft with, however many millions of hits that PFF, draft simulator is getting, and, able to see, is there some sort of aggregate correlation in between, draft probabilities? Obviously, if you were to pick.
I pulled up a NFL.com mock draft that is analytics based, picks to maximize wins.
Okay, picks to maximize wins.
Yes, which has your boy Slater going number 2 to the Jets.
Over Penei. Is Penei Sewell 1?
No.
Okay, so Lawrence is 1 and Slater is 2. Oh, because he plays right tackle and the Jets already have Mekhi Becton. Huh? That must be, right?
Yep. And then you have Zach Wilson to your Niners, which we'll talk about.
Hey! Go ahead, sorry.
Kwity Paye, a edge rusher from Michigan, to the Falcons. Penei Sewell to the Bengals, which I think they would very much welcome.
Yes.
Kyle Pitts to the Dolphins, which that makes a lot of sense too.
Yeah.
Chase to the Lions makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Trey Lance falls to the Panthers.
Makes a lot of sense.
That makes a lot of sense. Then Fields to the Broncos.
Also makes a lot of sense. But
that makes a lot of sense, but I still think Fields is a lot higher than that. And then they have my Eagles at 12 getting Devonta Smith, which I would love if Smith fell to them there.
That'd be amazing.
But yeah, all these mock drafts are all over the place. And some of these guys do 3-round mock drafts. It's at that point, how do you even know? I mean,
well, okay, so okay, I have done going on a dozen, if not more, PFF mock drafts now, and again, like I'm just a schmuck with a computer. So I go on, and I, it's COVID on right now. So I spend a lot of time by myself. And so, like I'll have dinner alone with my phone in one hand sliding through the PFF mock drafts. So, I mean, I will sit there and I will do all 7 rounds just for funsies. And, and especially now that they have the ability to trade for future draft picks. I really, it's fun to play mock GM and try to pick based upon an AI that you're picking against for the other 32 teams.
Well, that's where you get yourself into crazy town. I mean, because when you're talking trades, like it's hard enough to know where these guys are going to end up. Mm-hmm. I mean, and the thing is too, like we all know the rush on QBs. Like it's just it's going to happen. I just mentioned, Lawrence, Wilson, Lance, and Fields, and haven't even mentioned Jones yet. Mm-hmm. So, and Jones is going to sneak up into that, top 10 area. Like, that's the thing. Like, if you are in, the top 10 and you're not sold on a particular player, someone's going to be knocking on your door, or you're going to get a player that you did not expect to get.
Yeah. Quarterbacks are overvalued. And
they are.
And at the same time, it's understandable. It is the most important position in all of pro sports. And so just because of the position that they play, you have a guy. Look, I cannot play quarterback, but I don't personally think that much of Mac Jones. I mean, in the aggregate, is he? I mean, is he better than many starting quarterbacks in the NFL right now? He probably is. So understanding that positional value is important. But looking at the talent that there is in the draft, I don't understand why he's going. I mean, honestly, before pick 25.
He went to Alabama. He had, he had Najee Harris, who's going to be the first running back taken in the draft. He has, 2 of the top 3.
Waddle and Devontae, yeah.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Anyone competent can put up decent numbers with that. I mean, not to take anything away from him, but his good for him. His stock is going to rise. He's probably going to end up a top 10 pick, and whoever grabs him, I mean, is going to get I think a good quarterback, but someone that doesn't have much mobility. Mm-hmm. And if he's going to a bad team, what's he going to do?
Yeah. Well, I think the biggest reason to draft Mac Jones is because I honestly think, given his skill set, he's the closest to his overall ceiling, I think, of any of the quarterbacks, except for Trevor Lawrence. Okay, so take out Trevor Lawrence from the equation. So aside from Trevor Lawrence, Mac Jones is the closest to his ceiling of his athletic ability as an NFL quarterback. And so because of that, I think he's probably the second most ready to play right away. So if you are in a situation, where you need a plug and play quarterback right away, like the 49ers very well might, I can see the allure of why someone might want to draft, a Mac Jones, just because you can plug them in and get, a good level of production on it, especially if the team is already built. And it's interesting too that the Niners are at number 3 with an assembled roster that they have. But if Mac Jones were to go to, like the Jacksonville Jaguars or to the Falcons, well, the Falcons are okay, or like the Lions or a place like that, that would be a very, very bad fit for him, just because again, he wouldn't have a lot of those weapons. Sure, he could start right away, but he'd end up kind of getting ruined. Just having to play on a bad team too early, which can mess with an athlete's confidence and can label them. I mean, it's like Josh Rosen syndrome, right? A guy with a lot of physical gifts who came into the NFL probably was not as game ready as Mac Jones is now to play, but went to a really bad situation with a questionable head coach, in Arizona, and look where he is now. I mean, he was he was a first round draft pick, and he's on his 3rd NFL franchise already, even though they say he has this rocket, arm and is a really toolsy player.
Rosen, you had 3 years in college. Mac only started 1 year.
Yeah,
it's a sample size, and this mock draft I'm looking at doesn't even have him going in the first round. By the way,
That's great. Okay. You got to send me the link to this mock draft because I got to dissect this, and I also got to take a look at the criteria for how they're picking their players. But it's to produce the most amount of wins for the team.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it. Oh man, I got
it. Which is what you should be thinking about as a GM.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So. I mean, we had giant trades last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we did. Yeah, let's get into it.
Are you happy with what you guys gave up to get to number 3?
Okay, if we rewound back to 2 months ago, I would not have been happy with this trade. The reason why I am happy about the whole situation with the San Francisco 49ers trading up to acquire the number 3 overall pick with the Miami Dolphins in exchange for number 12 this year, a 2022 and a 2023 first-round draft pick, and our third-round draft pick in 2022. I would not have been happy to give up that much draft capital to move up to number 3. And the reason why is 2 months ago, free agency wasn't settled. We still had Trent Williams to re-sign, and Kyle Juszczyk, and Jason Verrett, and Emmanuel Mosley. A lot of guys that we had out there that we needed to re-sign. And I was very skeptical. And actually, I wrote a piece about this for my blog on sincosignetangent.com. I did not think the 49ers were going to be able to re-sign as many of their own free agents as they were able to, simply because they had, with the COVID cap, they were looking at, by small estimates, $13 million, but what ended up being, like $30 million worth to re-sign all of these free agents. And I was aghast that they were able to actually get all those free agents re-signed. And so looking at it now, considering they brought back the majority of our free agents in impact positions, and they filled in all the gaps on the roster that I was worried about, becoming empty. And all of a sudden, the biggest long-term glaring need became quarterback. This trade makes a heck of a lot of sense in that we still have Jimmy Garoppolo, who I do believe is an above-average quarterback. But
he took you to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, his problem is he can't stay healthy.
No, and I think that's probably why Kyle's worried. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing: outside of Trevor Lawrence, whoever is going to be sitting at 3, they're going to be happy with, right? I kind of compare this to what the Eagles did in 2016 when they traded up to 3 with the Browns, and the Rams were at 2. It was kind of like a Goff Wentz kind of coin flip. So you kind of had to live with, okay, you could get Jared Goff, which I wanted no parts of, as we all want no parts of Jared Goff. But you are in a position that if Wilson's off the board and he does go to the Jets, like a lot of people think he will, then you're sitting there with Justin Fields.
Yeah.
Which the guy can make all the throws. He ran a 4.4 at his pro day at Ohio State. But if you draft Mac Jones, I would be up in arms. Because you could get him at 12. That's a stupid.
I think you're right. You wouldn't need to, if Mac Jones is, so this has been a big point of conversation on 49ers Twitter and on a bunch of 49ers live streams and podcasts that I've listened to today. But just the fact of the matter is there is a consensus belief amongst the internet intelligentsia that Mac Jones would have been there at 6. You
guys could have jumped up to us, got a similar deal, and given up less.
Exactly. And probably if we wanted Mac Jones, that would have been, I think, a pretty safe thing.
Mac Jones, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. That would have made, I think, a whole lot more sense. So it has to be, probably, Wilson or Fields. It has.
Yes. I mean, I think there's also an outside chance that, I think, okay, I'm a fan. I think there's an equal chance that it's going to be either Justin Fields or Trey Lance at this point. And the reason why is because of athletic upside. The way I see it right now, Lawrence is going to go number 1. The Jets are going to take Wilson at 2 unless they trade out. And barring those things from not happening, we're going to be looking at either taking the extreme high upside guy in Trey Lance or the very high upside guy, but with like, a little bit less good of an arm and a little bit less mobility.
But he's but you're getting a leader that played for Ohio State. He was a very, very vocal on actually getting the Big Ten to play. Mm-hmm. He was, and that shows what leadership is. He, had an awful game the year prior against Clemson, comes back and shreds them for 6 touchdowns. That Clemson defense that is very, very solid.
Right.
I listen. We can do upside, downside, any sideways you want about Trey Lance. If I'm a GM, I'm taking Justin Fields any day of the week. Mm-hmm. That's one of the problems is we know this with GMs and owners when they get involved, a la Jerry Jones, who will draft a skill position player probably with any pick if he could. But they get too cool for school.
Okay. Yeah.
Don't you agree?
I do. And something else I wanted to touch on was to me, when I look at it, the biggest knock that I'm hearing on Justin Fields is that he's an Ohio State quarterback. And so, I did my Googling, and it seemed to me that coming out, the 2 most successful NFL players who were Ohio State quarterbacks seemed to me to be Tom Tupa and Mike Tomczak. And that's not a very good track record at the quarterback position over the last 30 years. Okay, when you have a punter and a Steelers backup quarterback is the most notable, NFL players at your position coming out of Ohio State. So you watch college football, and I really, really don't. What is the deal with Ohio State, and why do they stink at having quarterbacks come out?
Well, I feel that Ohio State, especially with Fields, they have an offensive guru. I think a lot of the way the Big Ten is played in general, a lot of the skill position players outside of running back, the quarterbacks, Russell Wilson was a transfer from NC State. Okay, so I'm not going to count him. But if you look at Pac-10 quarterbacks, Big Ten quarterbacks. I mean, Tom Brady was one from Michigan. But there isn't a giant track record.
Right.
I mean, if you go and do the breakdown, because it's more of a grinded out league.
Well, I mean, you look at like Haskins or like Cardell Jones or who are the other big Ohio State quarterbacks who kind of a belly up? I mean, I feel like in the last 10, 15 years, all these Ohio State quarterbacks.
I lived through Bobby Hoyne.
Yeah, Bobby Hoyne.
Bobby Hoyne was my pie in the sky for a year before we ended up drafting McNabb.
There you go.
But yeah, I agree. There are a lot of Ohio State quarterbacks that haven't panned out. I mean, they've had a decent receiving core.
Great skill positions. I mean, even guys like Carlos Hyde. I mean, they're solid NFL players for what they are. I mean, great. I mean, Nick Bosa and Chase Young on defense. Fabulous. Premier athletes there, but. I don't know, for whatever the reason those quarterbacks haven't. Okay, well, let's flip the script a little bit because we're talking a little bit about 49ers. So now the Eagles are in possession of number 12 overall, right? Yeah. So you moved down from 6. And when you were at 6, people were thinking that maybe it was going to be Kyle Pitts or, Waddle, Devontae Smith for you guys. I mean, heck, there was even some mocks I saw that said you guys Trey Lance. Yeah. Or, so who do you want to see be the Eagles pick? At number 12 now.
I would like a fan to pick that selection because the way Howie Roseman has drafted the last 2 drafts makes me want to vomit. Basically, just to kind of give it to you in a nutshell, we could have had the beast from Seattle, and we decided to take Arcega-Whiteside a pick or 2 before. Yeah. We had Justin Jefferson. And we got cute. Again, this is one of the examples of getting cute. We thought we needed more of a speed guy, so you get Rager because slot Jefferson played slot. So you're looking back and you're like, that would be our wideout tandem right now if Howie didn't do that. And now he has one guy that's on the verge of getting out of the league and one guy that has to have a bounce back second season. I think that they're going to be able to, looking at this, get somebody that will help them. If Smith is there, if Pitts is there, if Waddle's there, I think it's going to be a skill position guy. And I think that that's probably what they were looking at, is like, is there much of a difference?
Well,
compared to 12 with that?
Okay. So the Niners were sitting at 12 for a long, long time. Okay. Or, like since the end of the season, the Niners were sitting at number 12 overall. So I had a lot of time to think about the kind of guys who I wanted at 12 for the 49ers. And this was before Trent Williams was re-signed. So my dream scenario back in those days was getting Rashawn Slater at 12, like should he drop, and that was based upon position of need. And to me, it's what is your biggest need? Is there a corresponding athlete who's worthy of that pick? If not, you trade down. Right.
Exactly.
So what is your, I guess the question is, what is the Eagles' biggest position of need?
It's wide receiver.
Okay.
Playmaker.
Yeah. Playmaker.
And then I think if you had to go with another position, you would probably go cornerback. You would probably go in the 13 area.
Okay.
So I'm thinking that, they're probably going to go after, Surtain could be a possibility if you're going defense. It's just a matter of who's going to fall there. Is Pitts going to be there? I really, the thing I don't like about the trade is the fact that the Cowboys and the Giants are in front of us.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So
that's what I don't like.
The Giants are all in. The Giants are going to take. I think the Giants are very much in win now mode. That they're, that organization is tethered to Daniel Jones. They made a bunch of free agent acquisitions.
Galladay, that was a very good pickup for them.
That was very, very good for them. But they have Saquon, and he's coming back, right? They have a semblance of an offensive line, and so for them, I think it's going to be best player available. Dallas. Dallas has to be picking.
It's got to be defense or offensive line, right?
Right.
She had screwed on straight. But again, if Kyle Pitts is sitting there, you're not going to tell me Jerry's not going to get antsy?
If I'm Jerry Jones, what I'm doing is I'm trying to trade Zeke Elliott, and I'll take Najee Harris there because I think Najee Harris is athletically that good of a player, quite frankly. And Zeke is definitely on the other side of his running back career.
You could probably trade back in that second. Yeah, trade back in the first round and get Najee around 20.
Yeah, get above Pittsburgh is what I'm hearing to get that. But who the heck? But at the same time, it looks to me because the quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3. 5 in the top 8 picks, 8 or 9 picks. I think we might see right now,
which is great because then you, like I said earlier, you have that domino effect of really good players that are going to fall in your lap, and then it's like, oh, crap. We didn't even have this guy on our board because we thought he was going to be gone. Yeah. And here he is.
Yeah. Now, what is that called? Like looking at your horizontal board as much as your vertical board overall, and just not being able to pass up on that right player, And so this is something else I find fascinating about NFL drafts is, the value of a pick to a team, So for instance, the 49ers moving up to 3 cost them more than it would have cost, the Packers. Let's say they move up to 3 because the Packers don't need a quarterback. And the Packers wouldn't have been moving up to draft a quarterback. But the only reason why the 49ers would move up, from 12 to 3 is to take that quarterback. And so it inflates the value of the trade, which is something that I really find interesting. And so in that respect, that's how deals on draft day can get done, where we could see the Cowboys. It might even be in the Cowboys' best interest to move back and amass more picks,
Well, and I think that's what the Eagles' long game was with this is they were able to get – they didn't originally have a third-round pick. They got that out of the Carson Wentz deal. Mm-hmm. So you have now your first, your second, your third. They got a fourth out of this. Mm-hmm. They didn't have a fourth. They have 2/3, excuse me. And now they have a fourth. And then you're getting the Dolphins' number 1 pick next year, which they have so many draft picks and such high upside. But again, tougher schedule. And, where are they going to land with New England bouncing back, Yeah. So that's probably going to be anywhere from not that this sound bad, but 12 to 20. Yeah. And I'll take that. And then if Carson Wentz plays 70% of the snaps or they make the playoffs, then we get Indianapolis's first round pick. So we're looking at 3 first round picks.
Yeah.
So we're looking at a bucket list to go after Deshaun Watson if we wanted to go after Deshaun Watson. But I think that we're actually happy with Jaglin. But still, it's a good position to be in, to have kind of like this weird rebuild on the fly that you're probably going to have. I still think they're going to be probably 7-10 now, or somewhere in that area. Like, because our division's so bad and we have the easiest schedule, I do think we'll be better than some people expect. But having the
Hurts didn't look half bad. I mean, different coaching staff now and all that, and the whole Sudfeld debacle, which ultimately cost Peterson his job. But honestly, Hurts didn't look. I know I was mocking you over a text towards the end of last season over Hurts because I was like, "What are you doing?"
No, like when they drafted him, in the back of my head, I actually I know this is crazy. I purchased the Jalen Hurts jersey that weekend. I was like, I know he's going to be the next starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. I know. And I watch enough college football to know, like, he's a gamer, he's a leader. He has great work ethic, and we brought in an offensive-minded coach, but we also brought in Brian Johnson, who was the offensive coordinator of Florida, who's our quarterbacks coach, who has known Jalen Hurts. He was 6 years old. Mm-hmm. So you have that, type of chemistry, and you're going to be able to build a lot more. I'll say this right now, that Miles Sanders will be a top 5 fantasy guy next year.
I was going to say, so that was my prediction last year for fantasy, was Miles Sanders was the guy that I drafted.
Now it's this year, because our head coach is a big fan of utilizing running backs. Yeah. So get on that Miles Sanders train.
Well, and you know what? A running quarterback helps open things up for a running back as well, because it draws one defender away on every run, like run motion that could possibly happen there too. So that excites me, having the threat of a running quarterback along with a really, really good pass catching running back in Miles Sanders. So, all right, I'm excited for that. Now, you brought this gentleman up beforehand, which is Deshaun Watson, and it's kind of an ugly situation that is going on right now in Houston. It was an ugly situation before, however many 24 women or 20 women now who have come forward to accuse Deshaun of sexual improprieties, to say the least. At the same time, there's been no criminal charges filed, and there's some sketchiness with the attorney. It seems that this lawyer for Deshaun seems, who's
a lawyer knows the owner.
Yeah,
one of the defendants is friends with the owner. It's just super shady. And why haven't there been charges pressed by now?
Yeah, well, it's shady all the way around on this thing. And number one, we need to preface anything we say about Deshaun Watson with the fact that we need to hear all the evidence. All the women who have come forward to accuse him need to be heard and listened to. But we must also say, we do live in a country that is innocent until proven guilty. And as of right now, we're looking at civil charges and not criminal charges in this case. So, there are people who are saying this is, Deshaun Watson being a bad man, but there are also a lot of people out there on the internet who are saying that this reeks of a setup, especially considering the way that, honestly, the Houston Texans organization kind of has, in many ways, a plantation mentality in regards to their players' rights. And
it's just such a poorly run organization, and it has been for quite some time. And ever since they blew that game to the Chiefs, it's just been downhill. I mean, you give away, Hopkins, which is Watson's guy, and then you let J.J. Watt. We don't know how much J.J. Watt has left in the tank, but he was basically the face of your franchise for a decade, and you just let him go. Yeah. And now you're in this Watson debacle.
Yeah. Well, they traded the farm for Laramie Tunsil. And they set themselves up to put themselves in this very bad position where they're not looking at any first-round draft picks. They had the quarterback They paid the quarterback, but the organization, people were saying Deshaun Watson was overstepping his bounds as a quarterback, wanting, some sort of weigh-in on the head coach search process. But from, the accounts that I heard, on the internet were that they at least promised Deshaun to be in consult on who the head coach was the next head coach was supposed to be. And it was rumored that Deshaun wanted to have a person of color be the next head coach, and to have them turn around and not even interview like a Robert Saleh or
he wanted to be Bieniemy.
Yeah,
he wanted Bieniemy.
Yeah, which makes total sense given his skill set. And now they've got the special teams guy from the Ravens as the head coach. It feels very much like the year that the 49ers got Jim Tom Sula to be the head coach of the 49ers to scuttle the team. And he's their only asset right now, and he has that no trade clause. But he also has this massive salary that is going to kick in next year, which makes him very difficult to trade whatsoever. So were they to offload him, I'm pretty sure any team he would go to would need him to redo the deal, just because of the fact he's going to cost $40 million in 2022. So it's a very, very sticky situation. And then it seems to me, this bringing it back to both the Eagles and the 49ers, with this Miami Dolphins trade, I personally believe that the Niners set up their roster in free agency, with the whole being only at quarterback, and they were getting ready to offer 3 first-round draft picks, Jimmy G, a third, and maybe a few other goodies to Tennessee, to Houston for Deshaun Watson. And I also get the sense that the Eagles were also in the mix for Deshaun Watson, with all the future first-round draft picks that you guys had amassed as a result of your maneuvering, and also understanding the fact that you just, Carson Wentz moved away from Carson Wentz, who similarly had, this epic contract that was going to be very, very expensive. And so, to me, looking at the whole Deshaun Watson situation, I thought that the most logical landing point from a cultural point of view and also a salary cap point of view was supposed to be, in my opinion, the Eagles. Like I would have guessed that the Eagles would have been the ones to end up winning the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. And then, of course, 2 or 3 weeks ago now, this massage parlor business comes out, completely scuttling any trade opportunity that could have been out there. And here's the other thing. If it does turn out to be the Houston Texans that are pushing this false narrative, or this narrative against Deshaun Watson, they're just lowering his trade value. So it's not like they're going to be able to offload him for more. So it's like, which again adds credence to the accusations, quite frankly, because why would the Houston Texans want to sacrifice the value of Deshaun Watson in that way? So it's a messed up situation. So do you think the Eagles were in on Deshaun?
I don't know. I think they're actually more in Deshaun now if they wanted to be, because now you have basically 3 first-round picks next year, and more picks this year. Mm-hmm. So if they were going to strike, I wouldn't be shocked.
Yeah.
That being said, I'm comfortable and I'm excited to have Jalen Hurts as a starting quarterback. Yeah. But
he's not Deshaun Watson.
No, he's not. But he's also 22 years old. On a very, very generous contract that you can build around. Deshaun Watson, like you said, is going to have that contract kick in. We all know that, one of the great things about Tom Brady over the years of dominating with the Patriots is he was always structuring his contract so they could bring in other players. And a lot of people don't understand that and you have like Russell Wilson ticked off about the Seahawks. Well, Russell, look at your contract, dude.
Yeah,
100%. Like Carson, look at your contract.
Right.
There's a reason why we were lucky to even get the Colts to get you. When you have these massive contracts, it's hard, one, to bring in new players, but 2, to move you. I mean, we're looking at Dallas with this Dak deal. It's like you're stuck. You're stuck. Well, you're stuck with Dak. You're stuck with Cooper. You're stuck with Zeke.
Yes. I will say this, though. Dak Prescott is going to be taking a lot of Jerry Jones's money, and I would be thrilled to get paid by Jerry Jones personally. And the other thing about Dak Prescott's deal, is that it was a 3-year extension. 4-year extension. So he's going to get one more bite at the free agency apple. So God willing, he stays healthy.
He's got to stay healthy, though.
He's got to stay healthy and play well.
That's the thing, too. Like, you're coming off of a catastrophic injury. And that was the thing that I actually feel like heading up to the injury that, Prescott, you never want to see anyone get hurt.
No.
That he had. I thought Jerry played his cards really, really good because it's like, okay, we're gonna franchise you. We're gonna franchise you.
Yeah.
You're basically getting it to a boiling point where you're finally like, okay, he is my franchise quarterback. The Eagles, on the other hand, Carson tears his ACL and MCL, bounces back, comes back, then he screws up his back, doesn't finish that playoff season, and then he gets this giant contract.
Yeah.
I mean, why aren't you? I mean, you have a guy that, granted, I know he was, basically the MVP before he got hurt, but why aren't you playing that out?
Well, from Carson Wentz's point of view, I mean, so there's a couple things. So I would imagine his mechanics were affected by that ACL injury when he came back. Probably mentally, his confidence was shot. And then the Eagles drafted Hurts. So and with a not insignificant pick. I mean, it wasn't a franchise quarterback top 5 pick like Wentz was, and he wasn't this big heralded quarterback. But it was a 2nd-round pick, I believe. You guys,
a 2nd-round pick. But again, this is a guy that, if you look at Jalen's track record, started as a freshman at Alabama. He got benched in the national championship game for Tua, and Tua ended up coming back, and they ended up winning. The next season, Tua goes down with an injury. They're getting blown out. Jalen comes in, leads them. They come all the way back, right, and they get it. They get into the BCS.
Cinderella.
So that shows you the mentality of Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
You're on top. You're thrown down. You're put in a situation to have to win, to figure it out, and he wins. So I knew when they had that pick, I was like, ooh, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah. Let me ask you this.
It's not like you have like some random guy from Northwestern. You know what I mean? That doesn't that didn't have like Nick Saban as his coach and come from play against SEC competition.
Right. Let me ask you this. So looking at it now, do you think Hurts is a better NFL quarterback than Tua?
I think he will be.
Okay.
I believe there's a lot of Russell Wilson in Hurts. I think he does need to improve on his passing, which is huge. I think Tua needs to too. But I feel like there's a little more confidence in Hurts and a little more swagger and leadership than Tua at this point. Not saying that Tua is going to get it, but I do feel like Hurts has the potential to, definitely be better than Tua.
Mm-hmm. I simply don't watch enough college football to actually be able to say an adequate gauge. That being said, Tua's looked like a little younger version of Jimmy Garoppolo to me in the Miami Dolphins games that I have seen. I'd be curious to see what happens with Tua if you were to give him like a premier weapon, like a Pitts maybe this year, or like a Chase, Waddle, or Smith. Give him one of those guys, and see what he can do. At the same time, though, Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater could very well be waiting for him there at 6'2". And if you're the Dolphins, you might be remiss by passing up on one of those guys. I mean, to trade out of 3, and a lot of people had them slotted for Sewell originally, and then if all of a sudden they get Sewell at 6, I mean, I don't think he gets past Cincinnati, but were he, let's say Cincinnati takes Slater over Sewell, I mean... Well,
Cincinnati could take Chase. I mean, that's the thing. Like, again, we're back in the whole world of crazy mock drafts. Like, we don't know what these guys, because Joe Burrow might be like, I need someone to go with Higgins. AJ Green just left. I need another weapon. The smart pick would take Sewell or Slater. But again, we know this. Like, the smart picks, and that's what is interesting. I randomly found this mock draft based on how to improve your team.
It's so good. It's so good. It's like looking at this. It's also it's so correct. It is so correct.
It is. I was looking at it. I was like, Yeah. The only thing I really didn't like is that, again, I think Justin Fields should be higher on that list.
Yeah.
That's just me.
Well, just looking where I guess the Panthers ended up taking Trey Lance over Justin Fields, and Fields ends up in Denver. You know what though?
Listen, Fields ends up in Denver. They're going to be a playoff team next year. I'm not lying.
I know. With Judy and with Noah Fant and Cortland Sutton, and they could definitely get it done. That'd be fun. That'd be so much fun to watch too, and that Fangio defense. That's only going to get a year better with Fangio there. All right, we've been going on for 50 minutes right now, so we should probably start winding it down. So we've been talking NFL football, which we both love. So, Mike, do you have any final thoughts on this week in the NFL?
No, I think it's just going to be interesting to see. I think these trades that occurred last week happened a little earlier than they typically do. So now I think, being about what we're about, we are a month out now, right? Teams are going to be able to kind of, have these, I don't know what is the status with working out players?
Well, there's no combine. It's all pro days, and It's all pro days, and the NFL is a bit like organized crime. So there's a lot of wink, wink, nudge, nudge stuff. So I'm sure there's a lot of things happening that we don't know about as fans, or that are not taking place on the books. So I know just for Justin Fields. So today was both Ohio State and Alabama's pro days. And so for the 49ers, of course, we're drafting 3. So we're looking at both Mac Jones and at Justin Fields to pick at number 3. And a lot of media hay was made over the fact that John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan flew to watch Mac Jones play, but it didn't appear that they were going to go to Columbus to watch Fields play. But they watched Mac Jones play, then they jumped in a plane and flew to Columbus. And so they missed the pro day. But right now, apparently, Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch and the 49ers quarterback coach and the 49ers number 2 personnel man, Adam Peters, as well as the number 3 personnel man, are all sitting in Ohio, not meeting with Justin Fields as he is having dinner with friends. So there's a lot of, I think there's going to be a lot of backdoor workouts and like Zoom calls and things that are going to be happening in this age of COVID. And the thing I'm more curious about is, we need to start learning, because the NFL allows only a certain amount of FaceTime with these guys, or at least it did, scheduled wise, at the combine. But without the combine, it almost seems like they should just go to a no holds barred Zoom format at least, so the teams can interview as many of these guys as possible. Because, it's honestly, with technology being what it is just plain stupid that all NFL teams can't have at least a Zoom contact with any player that they would want to potentially pay millions of dollars to over the course of a 4-year deal, So, we're going to learn a whole heck of a lot, especially as publicized about these private workouts and private meetings. And we're going to have to look to real journalists to give us our news.
And again, I think, as you see a cat's tail behind me.
Oh, yes.
There will be guys that fall in the lap of people that you didn't actually interview.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
it's gonna be really, really interesting. And I'm just, I just hope for your sake you don't take Mac Jones.
Me too. All right, Mike, one last question. We should do this more often. We should do this maybe once a week. We should try to get together and talk some NFL football. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
Okay.
Sounds great.
Only rule: I will wear my CJ Beathard jersey. You have to wear your Jalen Hurts jersey. Okay.
I will in the future. I was the one that got you to wear that. I should have worn my Hurts jersey, but I will wear my Hurts jersey going forward.
Excellent.
All right. I've been debating if I should burn my Carson Wentz jerseys, but then I'm like, nah, I can't burn my Carson Wentz.
No,
jersey.
you should try to get it signed. Is what you should try to do. Just so at some appearance he'll do within the next 10 years, you should go and try and get it signed, because you had it when he was a Super Bowl champion and it was having an MVP season before he tore that ACL. So.
Exactly.
All in all. All right, Mike. It's been great to talk to you. Internet, please visit the Sine and Cosine Tangent blog at sinecosinetangent.com. Search on YouTube, please, for Sine Cosine Tangent. The icon looks like a shamrock with on a green flag background. So please like and subscribe to that. Trying to get some more viewers and try to make some hay in our own right here. We really appreciate your time for tuning in today. Thank you so much. And Mike, we'll talk next week. Take care, everybody.
All right, take care.